Good morning, students. Welcome to Math Lesson 92. Today we are dividing by two-digit numbers. So we use the same exact steps that we have used to divide by one-digit numbers. We divide, we multiply, we subtract, we bring down, we repeat or have a remainder. So dad, mom, sister, brother, and sometimes Rover. In the first part of our lesson, they talk about 140 students signed up for soccer. If the players are separated into 12 teams, how many players on each team? So that problem would end up being 144 divided by 12. Guess what? We will be revisiting that problem later in our lesson practice. So in our example 1, we are talking about when we begin dividing by two-digit numbers, we break the problem into smaller parts. So the first thing that we look at is how many times would 12 go into 15? We don't jump right away into the 150. We think, how many times would 12 go into 15? So then we know that 12 would go into 15 one time. 12 times 1 is 12. Then we would subtract the 2 from the 3, and we would get our 2 from the 5, and we would get 3. Then we bring down our 0. We take it step by step. Then we know that we have 30 here. 12 goes into 30 2 times. 12 times 2 is 24. Then we subtract, we get a 6, and 6 becomes our remainder. All right? So there are some tricks we use to make dividing by two-digit numbers easier. And that trick would be when we are breaking this down. We break the division problem into smaller division problems. So this problem of 987 divided by 32, we look at it as 98 divided by 32. Start there. Then the next step that I would do is I would look at the 3. I would think about it as how many times would 3 go into 9? 3 would go into 9 3 times, so that's where I start with my division. So I think 32 should probably go into 98 3 times. 32 times 3 is 96. Then I subtract the 6 from the 8, and I have 2. I bring down the 7. Then I look and I go, how many times does 32 go into 27? 32 doesn't go into 27, right? And if I look at it this way, how many times does 3 go into 2? Can't happen. I put my 0 up here, then I subtract, and I have 27 as my remainder. All right? You can check your answer by multiplying 32 times 30, correct? You get 960, and then you add the remainder in of 27. And there you go, 987. All right, Loma Vista School expects an enrollment of 868 students. The principal wants to have about 24 students and 1 teacher per classroom. About how many teachers are needed for the students at Loma Vista? Well, we're going to use compatible numbers to estimate the number of teachers needed. We heard the word about in there, so we know that this is an estimation problem. So we could round the 24 down to 20, but I'd like to round it to 25. So we choose 25 here, correct? Right there. Now we round the 868 to a number compatible with 25. So since we rounded 24 up to 25, we're going to round 868 up to 875. We think of 875 as 800 plus 75. Every 100 is 4 25s, as we know, like 4 quarters in a dollar. So 800 divided by 25 is 32. Since 75 is 3 25s, we find that 875 divided by 25 is 35. Loma Vista School needs about 35 teachers. All right, next we're going to go into our lesson practice. All right, in our lesson practice, I actually wrote out the problems so that we could do them together. All right, and the first one in our lesson practice, it talks about the fact that we need to estimate A and B in our directions, correct? So they want us to use compatible numbers. When I use compatible numbers for A, I am going to think about this like, I'm going to make this a 10. I'm going to round that down. And I'm going to make the 253 into 300. Now, if you made it into 250, that is A-okay with me. That's still a good estimate, correct? So 10 goes into 30, or 1 goes into 3 times, correct? I have 30. You actually don't have to go through all this work because you do know how to do this well, don't you? So 30 is my answer, correct, for A. Now, I am still estimating or creating compatible numbers for B. So B will become 20, and I am going to make 253 into something that 20 can go into easily. So I am going to make that 240 because I know I'm going to look at 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 24 12 times, correct? So 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 4 2 times, and my answer is going to be 12. Now, since I have the 20, I need to actually write that out as a 1 and a 2 up above there. All right, next we are going to get started at just doing our division regular. So I look at this and I go 3 goes into 4 one time. So I'm going to use my trick. 31 goes into 40 once. And here we go. That's 31 times 1 is 31. Then I will subtract. I need to regroup. 10 subtract 1 is 9. Let's see. And this becomes a 3. 3 subtract 3 is 0. Bring down your 3. All right, now I look at this. How many times does 3 go into 9? 3 goes into 9 3 times. So I am going to have 31 times 3. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. And there we go. My answer is 13. All right, my next problem, I'm going to move over a little bit. So we have room for it. 253. All right, I look, how many times does 1 go into 2? How many times does 12 go into 25? 2 times. 12 times 2 is 24. I subtract. I bring down. 12 goes into 13 once. 12 times 1 is 12. I subtract, and I have 21 with a remainder of 1. Next problem for E. I look at this. How many times would 12 go into 30? Well, 2 times, right? 12 times 2 is 24. I need to regroup. 10 subtract 4 is 6. I need to bring down. Some of us have this one memorized already. How many times does 12 go into 60? 5 times, correct? 12 times 5 is 60. Subtract. No remainder for this one. All right, let's go up to G. G was the first problem that we had in our book. 144 players signed up for soccer. If the players are separated into 12 equal teams, how many players will be on each team? Some of you have this problem already memorized, but I can look and see that 12 goes into 14 one time. 12 times 1 is 12. I subtract, I have 2. I bring down my 4. And 12 goes into 24 2 times. 12 times 12, or 12 times 2 is 24. I subtract and I have 0. And I need to make sure I put a label because this one is 12 players on each team. All right, let's go to H. 30 goes into 68. I can think of that. How many times does 3 go into 6? 2 times. So 30 times 2 is 60. I subtract. I get 8. I bring down my 2. How many times does 3 go into 8? Excuse me, 2 times. If I tried to go 3, that would be 90, and it would be too large, wouldn't it? So 30 times 2 is 60. I subtract. I have 2 as my remainder. 22, remainder 2. All right, we're only going to do 2 more. 22 goes into 92. Let's think, how many times does 2 go into 9? About 4 times. 2 times 2, or 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 4 is 8, 88. I'm going to subtract, and I am going to bring down. Oh, I need to regroup first. So I have 12, subtract 8, I have a 4. Ooh, about how many times would 2 go into 4? Let's try 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. I'm going to subtract, and 42 is my answer. Last problem. There are a lot more problems in the lesson plan, but we are going to do this one as our last problem together. I'm going to look at the 2. About how many times would 2 go into 6? Let's say about 3 times. So 21 times 3. 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. All right. I'm going to subtract. 5 subtract 3 is 2. Bring down the 4. How many times will 21 go into 24? I'm going to say 2 goes into 2. Well, it's going to be definitely more than 1. Or it's going to be definitely 1. 21 times 1 is 21. And I have 3 is my remainder. 31, remainder 3 is my answer. All right. Now, when you are doing the problems of 21 times 3 and problems like that, if you are unsure, just write it down. All right? 21 times 3. 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 63. The other part that I wanted to explain is when you are checking your work, you can do 31 times, oh, let me rewrite that. Let's do it right here. 31 times 21. All right, 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 1 is 3. Put my 0 here. 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. Guess what? I add those two together. I get 1, 5, 6. Well, obviously, I'm not finished because I have my remainder to add in. And I get 654. So when checking my work, I take my quotient, my divisor, I multiply them, and then I add my remainder of 3. And voila, the answers match. All right, have a great day. Get your homework started. Get going. Meet with me at 10 o'clock if you have any questions. Can't wait to see your beautiful faces. All right, our mystery word today is going to be Let's say today it's going to be dog.